a man who normally would be here on this Monday talking about all the Derby winners that he got for all of our friends and listeners on the program, the great Hank Goldberg. How are you, Hank?
Rich,
I know.
This is a tough day for those of us who were close to Coach Shula. You talk about horse racing. In his later years, once a month, he and I and Bob Greasy, a couple other fellows, will go to Gulfstream for lunch, and I did the handicapping, of course, and he was as demanding on me as he was on his players because he didn't like favorites. He said, "I don't want any chalk today." Now he liked to win, but he didn't want it to be easy.
Well, I mean, and plus he's used to, as a head coach, winning 67% of the time. I don't know if that happens in horse racing either, Hank.
No, he doesn't understand that.
No,
he didn't.
So when somebody certainly of a certain age right here who may not remember the great Dolphins years or associate the Dolphins with perennial winning every year, year in and year out, who was Don Shula? What would you tell that person of that generation who Don Shula was, Hank?
Well, he was a very demanding coach, but his players still, loved him. And he was, he said something to me once. We were talking about a coach who had a tough year and had let go of his staff. And he said that was something he would never do because the buck always stopped with him. He knew everything that was going on with that team. I mean, everything that happened in that locker room, he was on top of, and he knew every detail, and he left nothing that was not attended to, and that was him. And he just was always prepared, and he always did things the right way. And there was never any scandal with him. Nobody ever suspected him of anything that wasn't on the up and up. He was just a great, great guy at what he did.
And what it was...
And he was... Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go for it, Hank, please.
I was going to say he was so respected in the community that when Miami was having problems with riots and the reputation was besmirched, and they formed a committee, and they were looking for somebody to be the chairman of the committee who the world respected. And they turned to Shula, and he became the honorary chairman of their trying to get their image restored. That's what they thought of him.
Well, I mean, obviously, I guess the 17-0 season would be the pinnacle for him, and just the brotherhood, the fraternity that seemed to spark for decades, that everyone would still get together. That is just something for me that was always just remarkable to see, certainly in this day and age where I guess people can grow apart. And I'm wondering how much Shula had to do with all of that, Hank.
Well, that was something that some of the players who lived close to each other used to get together and celebrate. But, they had reunions. I went to one just a few years ago, and, he was always there. They had a person who was in charge of, Nat Moore was in charge of the alumni, and they made sure that everybody was in touch, that they would all come in and meet periodically every few years to celebrate their accomplishment. And it was a wonderful event to attend. And Coach Shula always spoke. And, of course, the guy who always brought the house down with stories was Larry Zonka, who was really Shula's favorite. But those lunches that we had in later years, his memory was sharp. He could remember things that were just amazing. His days with the Colts. I asked him once about Unitas, and he said, well, the best athlete on that team was Lenny Moore. He was probably the best athlete I ever coached. It was kind of an astounding thing for him to say when you think about all the great athletes he coached, although he acknowledged that Warfield was probably the best guy he coached athletic-wise with the Dolphins. But, and he would tell stories about Otto Graham in Cleveland, and he was just he and Greasy would get into it a little bit because he remembers every play that Greasy called. You know, and you know, Greasy did call his own plays, although you know Shula dictated what they were going to be.